famed author Clive Cussler.
The hero Dirk Pitt.
Deep 6. Episode 7. Elevator Pachinko.
But I'm on steroids another round, and I'm sleepwalking, and it's fascinating.
Oh.
Because I'm just terrifying my whole family. They have to hide the car keys.
Nice.
They have to block steps. I'm like having these vivid dreams. I am in the Starship Enterprise. I'm in the holodeck. I'm about to fall down my basement stairs.
I sleepwalked a lot as a kid, and it kind of stopped around 18, 19. And my oldest sleptwalked a lot as a kid, and it kind of stopped around 18, 19. Seeing full-grown adults do it is so creepy.
I didn't know I was doing it, and it was like I had gotten up, and I had gotten like a chicken leg. I just took a whole like rotisserie chicken out.
Delicious.
Took a chicken leg out with my bare hands, and went to bed and started standing over the bed eating it. And Chase talking to me, and I'm not there. So it had to be so disturbing.
And now Nancy's haunted.
No, I was haunting someone. I was doing the haunting.
Sorry, you're possessed, and now you're haunting everyone around you.
Yes, I'm an old poltergeist. I've always wanted to be that.
Sweet.
How about you? What's going on in your neck of the woods?
Crap, I don't know. It's almost record cold today.
Okay.
Because it
You
was
guys
warm.
really do extremes. There's never like, oh, it's normal temperature. Never, ever.
The last couple of years, we seem to only do extremes. I'm not sure anybody was expecting record low. Large chunks of downtown were closed off last night because of the rain. Like it flooded entire sections of the town where I live in. Last night, I had to go downtown and pick up my daughter because she met up with some friends, somebody she hadn't seen for years, and they all went out for dinner, and it was a thing. But the rain was so ludicrous, they couldn't even walk the 2 blocks to one of their houses to get picked up. So I had to go downtown and get them. And there's cars stalled out in like each of the gigantic half-block-long puddles because they're also 2 feet deep.
Oh, yeah, and it could happen fast.
Yep.
Are you in one of those places where it could happen like in the blink of an eye?
Every year or two, we get a rainstorm like this, and it just completely wipes out the storm drain system. Like, it cannot handle it. And they've been doing storm drain upgrades for the last couple of years, specifically to deal with this. And last night was more than, like, our upgrades were capable of handling. But I also found out
Perfectly normal.
that my vehicle can power through all of them. Go, Helga.
We're not supposed to test that.
Helga the Volkswagen.
Oh, God. Good for Helga. I appreciate Helga. But you're not supposed to be that parent that fords the river with your Tiguan.
Once I realized it could handle one of them, I was reasonably certain. Because my last few vehicles, like sometimes we would just go through a regular puddle with my 300, and it would splash up enough to like almost stall the engine out.
Oh, I've seen a Land Rover with like the engine
Oh, yeah.
ducting that goes all the way up, so you know, like the car's amphibious. Oh, it looks so much fun.
We have a lot of those in town. There's a lot of
Apparently you need them.
off-roading sports around here.
Do you have a boat in case of emergencies? Something inflatable?
Paddleboards. It'll be like a vacation.
Chilly, flotsam and jetsam vacation.
Flotsam and jetsam. It's the end of August, and we have to have the furnace on right now.
I swear, it is so extreme. It's either a fire season, like, that's a normal season for you folks. Is it warm or is it cold? Oh no, it's fire.
It's cold. It's still fire season. Soon we'll have locusts. We were so excited. We almost had locusts last year. Further south. It was in Alberta, but still.
When you're excited for the locust, someday we will be. Humanity will be like, oh, maybe the locust will come and we'll have something to eat. Yay, locust.
You will eat the bugs.
That'll be a dark time. But we'll get there because humans. I have no faith in us. We do everything stupid. That's my truth, and I live it, everyone. Welcome to Cussler Hustlers. I am evil, and also Nancy, your co-host. Over there's Topper, who's wholesome and bathing in angelic light, as always.
You're evil, but I'm the one with the goatee. Figure that one out.
It's a beard. Actually, I can't tell. You're really pixelated below the nose.
I'm just used to having, like, just this part for so long.
Oh, okay.
And then when I went bald, all this came in because the hair has to go somewhere.
Is that a rule?
That's physics, goddammit.
Old men used to get the big eyebrows. Do you have to trim your eyebrows?
Occasionally. That's one of the many stupid parts of getting old, is you don't have to trim the eyebrows. You have to trim the occasional hair that overachieves and gets 3 times longer than all the other ones, like you have little antenna.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm
Why?
familiar with that one, too. Why? What am I buying? Wow, we are avoiding the racist-ass book that
Yes, we are
going to talk about today.
This is going to be, hopefully, in theory, the finale of Deep Six. We might not be able to record all of it today, and if we don't, through the magic of seamless editing, you won't know where we left off and then picked up again. Because I am going to be gone for like 5 days this weekend. I have no time to get the episode out by the end of August, so the plan is September 7th. So, in theory, you're listening to this on September 7th. Because everybody listens on the day this podcast comes out.
Of course they do.
All the good fans do.
Hi, New Zealand. Hi, Stevie J. I love you.
Hi, Liz.
Oh, I love you too, Liz. I love you more. Just so you know.
Oh, now we're competing.
Competitive.
Okay. The cycle of niceness continues.
I will beat you in this. I will stab you in an alley if I have to.
You see what I have to deal with?
Where did we stop? Was it chapter 59 or 60?
We should be starting with chapter 61.
Pitt thought he was dead, but he's not dead.
Sandecker picks up Pitt from, I guess not the hospital, because he's been flown back to the States. Sandecker picks him up. They recap the novel again to update Dirk on what happened and to update Sandecker. And then they go off to brief Oates on everything and recap the novel again for Oates with everything Sandecker and Pitt knows. So there's a lot of needless fluff in this chapter.
There is a few things I wanted to point out. As Pitt strides up to Oates, he notices that Oates is wearing his slick $500 gray suit.
They do establish that Pitt is like an everyman, whereas people in this room like wear suits and are powerful. And Dirk's like, that doesn't impress me. And then they read Pitt's dossier, almost exactly the scene from Rambo 2, and they recap his exploits, and specifically the fact that Pitt was in Vietnam and bombed Da Nang.
It's a hell of a combination.
Our hero.
Yes. They go through the hero meet cute origin story of how and why him and Sandecker are besties for life.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like something very nerdy, where the Sandecker kept approaching, but it was certain doom if he got to his destination. So Pitt was flying, trying to deter him. Eventually, he had to bomb him to get him to safety.
That's how Pitt shows love.
You're onto something. Hurt people.
His love language is airplanes and high explosives.
His love language is incoming.
And then Pitt, he's very aggro about this, but he tells everybody in the room that he knows all about the nerve toxin that killed the EPA woman and how that was like a national secret that all you powerful politicians tried to bury and good people died because of that. But then he brings it all around that it's actually the fault of the Bougainvilles and Lee Ton.
Yes, he does it extremely smugly. He's got to drop smug mic at the end of this. Beat that. It's not antagonistic. Everybody in that room is there they're on the same page.
Yeah.
The FBI guy seems to be a bit touchy, which seems to be a little bit I had it on that. The this is my territory, don't go on my turf trope that's in a lot of movies. The man that plays the head of the FBI, Emmett, tries to dismiss Dirk Pitt and be like, "Oh, thank you for your information. We've got it from here," and he's kind of touchy.
Mm-hmm.
I think at this point, with the ideas that are with the events that have occurred, the president being mind-controlled by, they think, Russians, the Senate and Congress are locked out of their buildings, and the president's willing to shoot them down. Anything's on the table.
Dirk establishes that he's actually the most powerful man in the room because he says, well, first all the politicians are like, what? Lee Tong is a respected, wealthy man who donates to all of our political campaigns. And Dirk responds with, he also tried to kill me. He kidnapped Congresswoman Loren Smith, and he's mind-controlling the president by way of the Russians. And everyone's like, how the fuck could you know that? And then Pitt points out that he has Paul Suvorov's notebook. So Pitt knows more than everybody. He knows more than the Americans. He knows more than the Russians. He knows more than the Bougainvilles. Pitt has all the knowledge.
He's a masterful, omniscient man who kept everything in a cigarette box.
And he found the knowledge by murdering.
And he throws the proof at Oates because he had it in the oiled cigar case. Because the Suvorov guy had to keep a lot of notes because it was technical, and it was not something he was accustomed to seeing, so he had to keep it top of mind. Which is how a nice way of explaining away that little spy plot point. Like, oh, spies don't take notes. Well, this spy had to take notes.
In, like, absolute action man style, they ask Dirk Pitt for help grudgingly. And Dirk Pitt's like, no, fuck you, man. I'm going to do this my own. Well, we know. We asked you for help. We asked you to do this stuff. And Dirk's like, fuck you. I'm going to do it anyway.
Now here's a song that your Principal Skinner doesn't want us to play.
That's not true. This assembly was my idea.
Screw you, man. We're gonna play it anyway.
Oates says we're going to try, Oates and Emmett and Fawcett are like, we're going to try and save Loren. And he's even angry. He's like, you're better. They just said they were trying.
I wrote down that he uses his Lich King voice.
He wants them to die.
He uses his Lich King voice to tell them that. Because he's like so cold and steely and dead that everybody takes a step back when he says that.
I'd have such a hard time with that because that's exactly the register that drops out. That Liam Neeson, I have a particular set of skills kind of tone. He gets there in that movie. And I know it's awesome, but it's also, I need the subtitles on. And you can't just turn subtitles on in a conversation, no matter how cool and deep the gravelly voice is.
He's being all tough and manly, and you're just like, what?
What? Huh? Huh?
Enunciate.
Michael Rooker, the actor.
Oh, hell yeah.
I just heard him in a interview with Greg Fitzsimmons, I think it was, or Mark Maron. And he has a hearing problem. And he didn't realize when he was a young man that he came across as such a tough guy because he always had a deep, gravelly voice. But somebody would go up to him and he couldn't hear them. I mean, he'd say, "What'd you say?" Can you say that again?
Say that to my face.
And things like that. And he was terrifying people.
Excellent. And now he'll be forever known as the guy who yells, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all."
Didn't know he said that. I just know the way he went out in The Walking Dead. I loved his death scene in that movie, in that show.
That was amazing. Also, his death scene in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Best part of that movie.
And he is the villain in a Sylvester Stallone ski 1990s movie. Maybe Avalanche or Snowball or something like that.
It's either... Was that Cliffhanger? Because I know that was John Lithgow.
Yes. John Lithgow was in it.
Oh, sweet. I haven't seen that in forever. I didn't know Michael Rooker was in that.
He is... Everybody's overacting. There's nobody acting normally. There's extras overacting. It is hyper surreal. I totally recommend it as long as you're very drunk. So I can't enjoy it anymore, but you guys go ahead.
I think I saw that in theaters, and I haven't seen it since. So 30 years ago, I might have to revisit Cliffhanger.
It is unwatchable by minute 2. You're like, oh my God.
Excellent. No, I absolutely have to. Anyway, that was one chapter. So, chapter 62. Because the boat exploded. Well, south of Florida, north of Cuba. I don't know if that counts as the Caribbean, but because of the disaster with the cruise ship, the president's coup and military takeover of Washington has been pushed out of the news cycle, and everybody forgets about it.
Yes. I kind of get it. Everybody loves a big cruise ship disaster. Something about maritime loss of life at sea. At least women love it. But do you think even at this time, the early CNN of it all, they could have a dual screen? Hell, they'd invent new channels. They'd be like, this is the treason channel.
CNN 2, all treason all the time.
The Ocho.
God, my wife loves the Ocho.
That movie was so ridiculous when it came out. What innocent times. We're talking about Dodgeball, a movie that does not hold up, that is really inappropriate.
In so many ways, but it has so many tiny, perfect moments in it.
I think Rip Torn was actually throwing wrenches.
So many memes that last forever. Good time. The Chalamet, or the Chalamet, the boat that Lee Tong was on arrives in Miami. The FBI searches it. There's no sign of Loren. Womp womp. Gone forever.
Yeah, Al and his team searched it for 6 hours, so they really tried. And the Russian news is accusing the U.S. of hitting the Leonid Andreev cruise ship with a missile. So the U.S., in addition to having a coup and this maritime disaster off its coast, we are now being accused of an act of war.
Say whoopsie.
Which is the best possible time for it.
This is a great time to visit Grandma. So Lee Tong, that's what he's going to do. He strides in and he's like, what an exhausting day.
I am. What's up? Okay. Somebody woke up. Yes.
Wait. Don't say somebody woke up.
I'm going to make sure that stays in the recording.
He goes there and he goes, Grandma, I had a heck of a day, but I finally killed that Dirk pit. Grandma's like, you better. He was causing all of this shenanigans at the heart of everything today. My bookkeeping is on top of everything. My bookkeeping is in all shenanigans because of Dirk Pitt. So she's very proud of her grandson for the homicide of the day.
I forgot that Hiram has been hacking their computers for the last 50 chapters. And this is all that comes of it is Min Koryo's like spat right now of, our computers, all the books are fucked up. That's it. That is the sum total of all the hacking Hiram has done is this one line.
Not to toot my own horn, but in 1998, 99, I worked in international shipping for U.S. Customs. A lot of things were on paper. Not many things were on computer. There was a computer system, but there was also a way to completely go around the computer system. And a lot of people did that because those shipping guys were 800 years old. Nobody retires. They die standing up. So it was very analog in the 80s. I can't imagine hacking doing anything deeply devastating.
Yeah, you had warehouses of paper because everything was printed out, sometimes multiple times.
Yes.
It would be a pain to reconstitute everything in the computer systems, but like in the very late 90s when I was taking comp science in college, we were learning BASIC and Fortran and COBOL in the 90s because a lot of companies like Ford and IBM had servers that were coded in the 60s and could not be taken offline long enough to update. So they're still running. They're still running network servers that are running 1960s computer code because we can't turn it off.
I know I've made some very poor decisions recently, but I can give you my complete assurance that my work will be back to normal.
Every once in a while, there is some expose about some system in the Social Security Administration or NASA or something to do with nuclear missiles. And you're like, oh, this is on a disk that was only manufactured by IBM in 1965, and there's only 4 left, and the fate of the world hangs on this.
There was a nuclear missile cruiser that used 5.25-inch floppies because it would be too expensive to upgrade.
5.25-inch floppy. And that, listeners, was a fun trip down history and memory lane. Oh my God, we got nowhere. Okay.
I wrote in big letters, we only got to here. But there's not much more for this chapter. I'm sure I've edited this seamlessly, but we've just skipped forward a week.
Yes, we've time traveled. We've cracked that nut. Be jealous.
Our schedules went to hell and then I left town. So,
guys, he went camping. He has a beautiful home. At least I assume it's a home. He's always bathed in light. I assume there's walls behind him. He doesn't just live in like a heaven's den. But
We had to go camping one last time.
We have a perfectly good house with walls and a floor and bed.
Tell my wife that, not me. Actually, don't. She'll yell at me. All right, back to the book.
Okay.
So we left off, this is one of the long chapters where a bunch of things are happening. We left off with Li Tong talking to Meta Bougainville, and she's like, I don't care, go to war with Russia, see what happens. And Li Tong's like, okay, Grandma, let's get you back to bed.
Well, she is like 103. She's seen everything. Why not have another world war?
Yeah, she's had a hell of a life. She's like, fuck it, nuke the planet, whatever, I'm rich.
Well, isn't this the way the wealthy become bored?
Mm-hmm.
And start to fuck with things? Like, you would never think of having an orgy with a minotaur until you're contacting a surgeon who can create a minotaur because you're that bored.
That's weirdly specific, but yes. I wish the wealthy would just do that rather than, like be 80, 90, or 100 and still, like, stick it out in politics for no apparent reason. Like, fucking retire. Leave.
Seriously, retire. But nobody can afford to retire because this whole wealth thing is a smoke and mirrors. It's about to collapse. Also, I saw Chaos on Netflix and it was hilarious, which is why I brought up the Minotaur.
No idea what that is.
It is about the Greek gods. There's a Minotaur in it.
Well, of course, you got to have a Minotaur.
Yeah.
For the Minotaurgies.
And the hot guy who was in Jurassic Park plays Zeus.
Jeff Goldblum?
Yes.
Wow. That was just a random guess because I figured, well, no one's going to call him the hot guy from Jurassic Park, but hell yes.
Yes, he is. He was so hot. He was a science guy. He was
absolutely.
Charismatic. Oh, my God.
He was the hot guy in Jurassic Park to a certain generation, which is namely you and me.
Oregon Trail generation for the win. So anyway, Min Koryo is like, yeah, you know what? Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Hit the hornet's nest with a bat.
They decide that the president will likely be impeached. So when that happens, that's when they'll release Margolin and remote control him. And if that doesn't work, they'll just bribe Moran because they're like, well, he'll do anything for money. Or rather, he'll do anything for power.
Power and money being very conflated with Moran.
Very interchangeable. And this whole conversation is being recorded by Sal Cashio, but it's an automatic recording, and he doesn't check the tapes until later.
Yes, he left to get a donut or a snack or something. He's a man. He's got to... They don't show Superman taking bathroom breaks, but essentially that's what this was. Sal Cashio had to leave the room for human reasons.
And then there's one final aside with Metcalf and Mercier, where the president has ordered to withdraw all forces by Christmas and disband NATO.
Yes, and the president wants the plan within 20 days on his desk. Well, the pres-to-be, Moran, wants this whole setup to be on his desk within 20 days. The Europe and NATO plan, which is no small feat. Let's withdraw from everywhere.
And then we skip forward to chapter 63, where the president is still being crazy.
This poor guy. This is just such a tragic story all on its own.
I have it written down where Fawcett walks into the president's bedroom, and the president asks, so, did Moran read my proposal? And Fawcett responds, yes, he told you to kill yourself before he impeaches you. Politics was rough in the 80s.
I don't remember it being that way. I remember everyone being drunk, and then they would shut the lights out on Ronald Reagan whenever he got too out of hand.
It was a kinder, gentler America.
Tip O'Neill was hilarious.
And if you're a fan of Some More News, just this morning...
Holy cow, really?
They released a brand new Reagan video this morning.
They have a Jordan Peterson episode of Some More News that is a work of art. And of course you listen to Some More News. Of course
I do. The 4-hour short video about Jordan Peterson.
It was a masterpiece. Whenever you see a masterpiece, you call it out for what it is. I saw an episode of Blue's Clues that was wonderful.
Jordan Peterson is in my local news right now.
Oh.
He sat down and did an interview with the leader of the BC Conservative Party, because we're about to have an election over here. Our BC Liberal Party disbanded and supported the Conservatives, which shows how good our Liberal Party is doing. But then the leader of the Conservatives sat down for an interview with Jordan Peterson, and it's some of the stupidest things ever. And this 10-second clip going around of Jordan Peterson going, they convinced carbon-based life forms that carbon is the problem.
How did he get to where he... I know how he got to where he is. I just can't believe.
I've been doing some crank, man, and it's actually pretty damn good. You cannot believe it. Everyone has to do it.
You know, Gabriele Princip was just one guy eating a sandwich. You know, he failed his first attempt at assassinating. So he went to lick his wounds and just eat a sandwich. And then Franz Ferdinand came around to like, oh, we'll drive around the block, see if anybody needs help. And that loser, friend Gabriele Princip, was like, oh, I guess I could do it now. So it's just all losers getting the right moment. That's what history is. JFK gets shot by Oswald, who's a lunatic. Every former president of the U.S. was winged in the air by some loser who just wanted to shoot somebody, apparently. Last month? 6 weeks ago? I don't know. It's
something like
18 news cycles ago.
Yeah. It's in the past. It never happened. And nowadays, it's not about who you shoot. It's about which soundbite you can get to go viral. And now you're famous and important, and people have to listen to you.
Yes, we are right now, at this moment, living in the age of Haktua. Oh, we have to pause for a moment.
I can tell.
I think I'm getting a UPS package.
Ah, excellent.
It's a dress. Knock it off. The dogs went nuts. It's a pink dress that UPS delivered. It's terrifying.
The dogs are helping. Still helping. The president threatens to shut down Congress for good. Oscar Lucas brings in coffee, and they all talk for a little bit, and they drug the president.
What do they have to do? I can't even feel remorse about this, but this is its own, deeper than Shakespearean. This is worse than King Lear. This is a tragedy that's befallen this man, and it's like a tertiary story. This man was going to... UPS is doing U-turn driveway.
Must protect the house.
So this former president is being drugged, and it turns out that they had him, after being drugged, they take him to a facility that looks just like the Oval Office.
Yes, they do the thing from one of the Mission Impossible movies. Yeah, he's in an exact copy of his bedroom. They have him drugged so he thinks he's sick, and the Russians are like, boy, the president's sleeping really soundly tonight.
Oh, I thought they actually made him sick. I thought they put a virus or a bacteria.
Yeah, they did something so he's sick.
He's miserable.
He's bedridden, but he's issuing all these crazy orders from bed, but it's not the real bed. And they do like the whole hacker thing where they swap the tapes on the video camera, and the Russians are now just being fed fake information from Team America.
Yes, but it's not the videotape. The feed they're changing is the brainwave tape.
Mm-hmm.
Like the brain feed. So it's a bit deeper than like the first Die Hard scene where they switch the feed with the B-roll. We have enough B-roll now. We could switch the feed. They're switching brainwaves.
It's the same idea, but it's done with supercomputers.
Exactly the same idea. Exactly.
And finally, chapter 64, we get back to Dirk Pitt doing stuff, because, boy, there's a lot of politics in this book. Political machinations. Machinations.
Oh, but before in chapter 6... Jeez, my phone just exploded. Chapter 63, Emmett and Metcalf swirl whiskey, very masculine, in a very masculine fashion. And they ask Emmett, can you dismiss White House security around midnight? Emmett of the FBI is like, yeah, sure. No problem there. That's how much the government has broken down. We're now in a very casual, laid-back tracksuit level of government.
I'm sure nothing bad will happen. There's nothing important happening in the news right now. I'll just make security stand down.
Oh, and Sandecker and Pitt are in what chapter? 64. Sandecker and Pitt are in the war room. No, Sandecker is in the war room with Emmett. They wake up Yeager for the hell of it.
Yeah. Pitt calls Hiram Yeager, who is sleepy because it's 2 a.m, and Hiram whines and complains. He's like, let me sleep. Come on, Pitt, you're the worst. And then Sandecker gets on the phone and just growls at him. And Hiram's like, okay, here we go. And Pitt has Suvorov's notebook still. And they're going through all the information and trying to track down the mind control facility in South Carolina.
And they're asking a lot from Yeager. They're like, you have to find a connection between all of these things, between Min Koryo, between the Russians, between these boat names. Yeager has to play like boat Matlock on speedrun.
This made me think of all those scenes in like CSI and national security movies when they just go enhance, enhance, enhance.
Oh, yes.
And you can't actually enhance anymore, but it's fun to think so. So they give Hiram Yeager like the exact dimensions of the mind control lab because Suvorov wrote that down. And they're trying to match it up to a boat that could possibly be owned by one of the companies owned by Min Koryo Shipping. And there's so much back and forth, and they eventually settle on, oh, it could be a lumber barge.
Yes, they're like, oh wait, he had the internal dimensions. Let's add on the external dimensions. We have the ID, we need the OD. And they are very proud of themselves for this. But this was like listening to a bunch of people argue about sorting an Excel spreadsheet.
It really was. This was Clive sitting down and going, I have done the goddamn math and you will listen to me.
Yes, it was. That's what it was. It was exactly like you said before, CSI. They were just showing all of the homework. And he did all of the homework. I'm so proud of you, Clive. You did it.
But after all that math, it does end on a serious note. Was it Sandecker or Al? Because I know Al keeps pointing out like every horrible thing that could happen, but I think this one's Sandecker, where he says, if Bougainville thinks that we're getting close, his only choice would be to kill Margolin and Loren.
Yes, if they're found out.
And pretend it never happened. And Pitt's like, I don't care.
Well, Pitt's serious about this. It's a woman he knows her first and last name. And the whereabouts of her father. I wonder if he ever told her.
Oh my God, you're right. That was like 3 books ago. I don't know if that ever happened in text.
No, it never does.
That's amazing. Listeners, go back and listen to Vixen 03, if you dare.
We go back to 65, and the president's doctor diagnoses him with the flu. He feels terrible. And this is when he is in this huge set that's been created within a few hours, like we just spoke about it. So the theater kids come in to save, they come through to save democracy.
Mm-hmm.
The art kids, the art crew kids, the theater kids, the marching band kids, I'm sure, they all came together to kidnap a duly elected president of the United States.
Duly elected and unduly brainwashed president.
Well, that's not really made clear to the public at large. So,
oh, God, no.
As far as most people know, you were doing a kidnapping. Oh, right.
Yeah, they might never be able to prove, like, in court that the president was brainwashed. They're all kind of going off of this because it all makes sense and they all know, but they can't possibly have proof.
Some things don't come with receipts.
Nope.
And I think brainwashing by radio signals via KGB doesn't come with a receipt or a manual.
Mm-hmm.
At least not in English. Back in the 80s, if it wasn't in English, there was nothing we could do.
They spend a long time with Edgley talking about how they're hacking the brain. And he says, are there any messages you want sent to the Kremlin? And they joke back and forth a little bit until they all realize Moran is going to be president now because they've taken the real president out of commission. They're making the army stand down. They're reversing all of his stupid decisions. And it's inevitable. It's going to be Moran.
Yes, and Moran, as we've gone over, is an oily corporate shill that's only out for himself.
Yeah, so they talk about ways to stop Moran.
And they also talked about the hardest thing was coming up with a scentless penis. I was like, what? Yes. Clive, the fate of the world hangs in the balance. We're talking about all of these details. And then one guy's like, hey, we came up with a pain that doesn't spell. And it just wanders off screen.
As an aside, I've thought of everything.
Yes, just everything.
Yeah, the FBI and the CIA have like squeaky clean files on Moran. But Emmett does reveal one thing. Black Fox and Churchill, a stock brokerage in Chicago, which is hiding all of Moran's bribes. And apparently it's a lot of bribes. Sorry, lobbying money.
Yes. The scandal is, and this must have been such an own when this book was written. He's bought and paid for. Oh.
And I appreciated the line, you can't put the country through 2 impeachments.
Yes, you can. And you could do it in a week.
Man, that'd be wild, huh?
We haven't done it in a week yet. Just wait, though. We'll see.
But yet, they get the phone call. Moran has rammed through the impeachment vote. So basically, unless they get the vice president back by tomorrow, America is doomed.
Doomed!
Which is, I think, the 4th time America has been doomed to this book.
America has taken the hits here. And I'd like to point out, it's the United States of Canada, so you're wrapped in on this one too.
I know, there's like hardly any mention of Canada in this. I am offended.
You should be. You should be. So Moran claims lots of things, but that the VP committed suicide? He throws that out there after he was picked up from the Leonid ship. Just so many questions there. Like, you went with suicide, huh? Not like, oh, I saw him drown. So Moran's making it more difficult on himself than it needs to be. Oh, and then we get to 66, we get to car talk. I can't believe Clive waited this long.
Oh boy. Yeah, I've written down Pitt is in his Hangar Museum treehouse, because this is just what every boy wants, is the place where Pitt lives.
I just saw a documentary about a guy in the 70s who built his own treehouse in Portland. Later, he became a high echelon member of a drug cartel, but his treehouse looked awesome.
I've seen that meme, but it has to have been a dozen times by now. And it's just like a diagram of the human brain, but it's pointing to one specific zone, which is the part of every man's brain that's currently building a treehouse.
I think everybody wants treehouse.
A little part of our brain. Everybody wants treehouses. They're awesome. But yeah, he's in his giant man cave studying the inland waterways, 10,000 miles of shallow rivers. Totally easy to find this barge.
Yes, and Pitt brings up something nobody's thought about before, the inner hidden canalways that are sort of being worked on, and some of them have been completed, but the whole project hasn't been unveiled, so nobody's considering that in their logistics of where this barge might be.
He gets a phone call from Sandecker. The Joint Chiefs have thrown the Army, the Navy, the CIA, and the FBI behind our search, because they all have to find Margolin, like, immediately. And Pitt's like, it's a waste of time. The barge isn't there.
Yes, he says it's hidden near the Delta based on ship names.
Because all the ships, like the Pilot Town and the San Marino and the yada 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 yada, all the Bougainville boats are named after a town somewhere on the Mississippi Delta. And Al's like, well, that's proof to me. Let's go.
You know that would be proof to me, too. And what makes me sad is...
Well, it's proof of one thing. It's not proof that that's where they put the boats when they're done with them.
I know. That's what makes me sad. I'm dumb. I would just go with that bit and be like, yeah, we've got no time. And that's enough for me.
So Pitt grabs his Colt submachine gun, and away they go. Until, I guess Sandecker calls again and says Moran has called off the search for Margolin, which I'm not sure he can do. He's not president yet.
Oh, yes, he is not president yet.
Yeah, he just rammed through the impeachment. He's still just a guy.
But he is on alert, and he tells, he removes Oates, Emmett, and Brogan from house arrest to brag at them, to rub salt in their wounds, to monologue at them. It's like, by this time tomorrow, you should all resign, or else it'll be really bad for you.
Right. That's at the start of the next chapter. The very end of chapter 66 is where Pitt and Al are like, fuck you, man, we're going to go find Margolin anyway. And they grab their guns and they leave, and they just missed a phone call from Sal Cashio.
Oh, I forgot about that. That poor Cassio guy.
He's doing his best, goddamn.
What a sad character.
We had chapter 67. I have it starting off with Moran is in his bribery office.
Oh, I would like a bribery office.
Yeah, a special place just for your corruption.
And this is before a time of like ankle bracelets. So he had Oates, Emmett, and Brogan under house arrest for real, like with armed guards. So he had them Praetorian Guards style marched into his bribery office.
Because everyone basically knows he's the president. He's just not officially the president yet. But I guess he can still order around all the Imperial Guard.
And then we cut to a KGB guy, Polovoy, who's in his limousine. So it's an American-made limousine, a Cadillac, that he's imported from the U.S. to study.
Yes, study.
And he just happens to drive it anywhere and everywhere. And he goes to visit the President Anisov, and he says the Americans do not behave in predictable ways. And this is an evergreen statement.
Yep. He mentions that Moran is going to be the new president. Antonov asks, can we work with him? And Polovoy responds, he's very affordable.
I also feel like that's evergreen.
Oh, we're going to have an easy time with this president. Don't worry about it.
Whenever I think about the Senate, it's only 100 people. Like, we should have made that. There's so many more people. 100 people to bribe is so few.
Mm-hmm.
And our forefathers were like, 100? That's such a big number.
It would be impossible to bribe 100 people.
But this is when Edgley and crew switch the feed. And it's like the control room at NASA. The place goes bananas. All of the U.S. psychologists are successful in switching the stuffy presidential feed for presidential B-roll feed.
Yeah. So they can feed fake information to him. And they have to point out once again that the Russians are paranoid. And somebody asks, so do you think Lugovoy will swallow it? And Edgley responds with, he'd never admit to the KGB that he failed. So he's just going to keep handing off all this completely wacko, insane information and be like, yeah, my plan's working perfectly. Look, we're brainwashing the president still.
And to be fair to Clive, it is happening at a pace. And we are all in a world where things are happening quickly. They are not fact-checked. And I am sorry about the dogs. I am sorry.
Nobody got time for that. That's okay. I can probably edit those out.
Chapter 68?
Part 4, The Stonewall Jackson, August 13th, 1989, New Orleans, Louisiana. And now we are just in the craziness until the end of the book.
Yes, we are.
This is like the worst hour of everyone's life is the entire rest of this book.
Dirk and Al fly to NOLA. They meet up with a guy named Griffin there. He's from the FBI. And he gives this I've been told by Emmett, I'm not allowed to officially give you any help. And Dirk's like, so why are you here? Why would you come all this way to tell me that? And it's like, wink, wink, it's Sunday. I'm not allowed to give you official help. And I hate this trope. This trope is just such American bureaucracy wankery. The world is falling apart. The premise is the world is falling apart. And you don't have time for this kind of cuteness.
And these are the only men who can hold it together, but they can be a bit macho while they're doing it.
Oh, yeah, they have time for these cute lines and these, like, it's a gotcha moment. I'm officially not on duty.
Mm-hmm.
Or that makes it legal. If I have my fingers crossed between my back, I am not doing the treason.
He says that he's there with a bunch of other CIA guys who are also on their day off, so anything they do is entirely unofficial. And they've searched like 200 barges, and of course Dirk's like, he has gut knowledge. He says, you're all looking in the wrong spot. Come with me.
Yes, as you've pointed out, he is omniscient.
Yes. But since it's been a while and Loren's kidnapped, we have to take a few minutes to meet the FBI helicopter pilot, a thin, blonde, dreamy-eyed woman.
Yes, a lady pilot.
Named Slats Hogan, who has the coolest name and is now my favorite character.
What's her name again?
Slats Hogan.
Slats Hogan. Slats for Slatarina?
I have no idea. I feel she was imported from a better book.
She does sound very cool and intuitive and well-trained pilot.
Yes. Knows her shit. Talks in a southern drawl. Pitt seems to like her. Let's see how long she lasts.
Well, we don't exactly find out. Shortly after we meet her, they are canvassing the Delta from the helicopter, and they pass the Stonewall Jackson. It is just something they remark on. It's a tourist trap. It's a riverboat that is docked permanently. Mm-hmm. It's a casino hotel kind of vibe. Old people with cups of coins for the slot machines.
Yeah, there's a lot of history stuff. They talk about the Civil War. They name every single town on the Delta. This chapter really meanders because I think he had to make his page count.
Oh, yeah. And you don't want to fill it up with Stonewall Jackson facts because he was a terrible human being.
Yes. But I do like Slats Hogan's voice in the audiobook because right near the end of this chapter, when they finally find a barge that looks like the right one, and it has a towboat, and it's right near an abandoned warehouse, and Hogan's like, something's happening, the barge is moving. Like, the audiobook guy sounds drunk doing the Slats Hogan voice. It's great.
Okay, now, we need Darted Bear. 10% more Darted Bear. She's very southern.
Could that be the right barge? And the barge immediately sprouts machine gun emplacements and shoots them all down.
They found it, and the podcat arrived.
The podcat has arrived. The podcat is bleeding from her nose.
Do Do you have to take a break?
No, it's a scratch. She's been adventurous outside and being a real jerk lately. Like she has a rip in her ear. There's now a scratch on her nose, and oh yes, you're very cuddly, aren't you? You're just a little old asshole. You're picking fights with the neighborhood cats.
She's just demanding. Listeners, the cat is just demanding attention. She's going to eat the microphone otherwise.
She's blocking my monitor.
She's got a gun
and demanding pets.
The topper's head.
She's holding me hostage.
The cat has walked away, and now we can talk about the goddamn bloodbath they walked into.
Yes.
Pitt tells Griffin, the off-duty FBI guy, you can't just walk up to this barge, show your identification, and pretend this is going to be a normal FBI encounter. And Griffin's like, well, this is what we have to do. We have to go by the book and announce who we are. Yada, yada. And of course, Pitt is right, and Griffin and his men get mowed down.
Yep. Everybody on the ground is shredded. They're shooting up the helicopter. Dirk is firing his submachine gun out of the helicopter, killing Mooks, because none of the FBI guys can actually hit anyone. While Hogan dodges machine gun fire, and the end of this chapter, I think I missed something happening, because by the end of the chapter, Dirk is piloting.
Dirk, yes. The windshield, I guess, is a windshield on a helicopter. The glass in the front breaks.
Yeah.
The glass gets in her eyes. Blood rains down her face, and she can't see. So he has to take the controls and scuttle the helicopter. And I don't think we hear.
I have it written down that they still crash, just in a slower, manlier way.
Yes, and I don't think we hear about Slats again.
I don't think we do.
I think that's the end of Slats. So I'm sorry you got attached.
One chapter, and then she's gone.
She's very gone. Probably perforated, very liquidated.
Chapter 69, we deke sideways to Brogan, Emmett, Metcalf, and Sandecker, who are watching all this happen from like a weather plane, which is filming the whole thing. That's how they're keeping up on it.
Oh,
and
yes.
They watch this bloodbath, and they're like, well, everyone's dead, and the Senate's going to vote.
They get in charge. They are trying to assemble all of the help they can. And of course, all of the help they can is just close enough to be too far away. The guy that comes on the scene first is not a fighter pilot, not anybody that can help, just a naval reconnaissance pilot.
Yeah.
And that's why the guys in the war room could see everything, because they've got a Navy cameraman who's named Ulysses S. Grant.
Of course he is.
And I'd like to say, for those who don't know, the president was not named Ulysses S. Grant. That was a mistake of handwriting when he checked into West Point. His name was Hiram Ulysses Grant.
Hiram Yeager Ulysses Grant.
No S there.
Weird. They get a phone call from one of Griffin's men. And he's like, the tug is pushing it away towards the South Passes. I'm dead. And they can't figure out why the barge would get pushed out to sea. And all I could think of is, because you found it, you morons, they're going to kill everyone. That's why there's a time limit. You have to get the boat before they sink it.
Maybe they're suffering from lack of audio bed. They need a soundtrack to let them know how tense this actually is.
And then another phone call happens because there's a lot of plot threads that have to get resolved real quick. And Sal Cashio calls Sandecker.
And he says they're going to scuttle the boat. The VP and that Loren broad, because that's the way I'm imagining Sal talks. Sal talks like he's in the 50s.
That broad, that dame.
Yes. He lives in the same place that Roger Rabbit did.
Sweet.
And he's like, they're gonna sink the boat. And Sandecker's like, oh, of course, he has that moment.
Right, that's what we were doing here all day. I forgot.
And we fly into chapter 70, and Lee Tong is looking at the horizon, and his Royal Navy escape ship is approaching.
Yes, it's a fake Royal Navy boat, actually owned by Bougainville.
And it's a brilliant maneuver. You don't ever want to cause an international incident, and it looks like a passerby. There's a podcast I like to listen to, and they are called the Sofa Kings, and they have this phrase called Sir Passerby, and I love that phrase. It's just, you always want to look like a Sir Passerby, hand in your pants, just whistling by, like, don't pay attention to me. And that's what he's trying to do with this naval ship.
Their plan is to scuttle the boat, but have the Royal Navy boat fake arrest them, so it looks like they've been captured by the authorities, and then they'll just go home and keep doing evil.
Yes. to escape and to buy time. As Lee Tong says, he hired the fanciest British accent to say they're under lock and key.
Yes. Sandecker is trying to scramble all the airplanes, a nuclear sub, Coast Guard, something, but all they have is a nearby platoon of SEALs. And I guess it skips forward a bit because the SEALs arrive on an airplane and they're like, it's a barge, what are we doing here? Not a lot of information being passed down through carefully organized chains of command. Everything's falling. Actually, that might be on purpose. Everything's falling apart. America's collapsing. No one's in charge of anything anymore. No one knows what's going on.
And when do we get the LARPers?
Oh, that would be the beginning of 72. So right now we're in 71 with Lee Tong on the barge. Well, Lee Tong is in the towboat, which is hauling the barge out to sea. And then we meet Lieutenant Homer Dodds, who is one of the Navy SEALs.
And they get torn to shreds.
He says, ahoy, towboat, reduce your speed, yada, 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 prepare to be boarded. And then this crew person, who happens to be Oriental...
They can't say that word enough in this book.
I have to keep pointing that out. Waves and is like, oh yeah, sure, no problem, come on down. And I had to write down this sentence, which is amazing. Homer Dodd's men were lean and hard, the toughest, raunchiest, meanest bunch of killers he'd ever commanded. They were prepared for anything except total surprise. And then the machine guns appear again and shred another airplane. We're just doing the same thing from 3 chapters ago.
They're very well equipped.
I just love how they're prepared. They're prepared for anything except somebody shooting back at them. Who could have seen that coming?
Ow! Ow! Oh, they're defending themselves somehow.
I've watched football. I understand sometimes you prepare a lot of offense and not a lot of defense.
True.
I might know a Giants and Jets fan.
They scrambled the SEALs to capture this barge, but they were ordered to capture this barge by people who watched the barge sprout machine guns and kill the last bunch of people they sent after the barge. Did nobody tell the Navy SEALs, oh, and by the way, they're armed?
Maybe it didn't come up.
There wasn't room in the memo?
They didn't ask? You know, if you want to be a real dick in a conversation, you've never asked. Why didn't you tell me about the gunmen that were already mowing down people?
We will discuss this when I get home. So Sandecker and everybody is watching all this on TV still, and they're like, well, we're boned again. But there's 2 ships approaching the barge, a Royal Navy survey ship and a civilian ship. And somebody asks, what's the nationality on the civilian ship? And Sandecker says, you won't believe me, the Confederate States. And now we get the greatest part of this book. Please take it away. I felt like I've been hogging it so far.
No. The tourist trap that we flew over earlier, the paddle boat that was permanently docked, the Stonewall Jackson, is trudging, whistling, roaring down the Mississippi River. It is puttering as fast as it can. Everything is shaking. Every bolt is shaking. Somehow the guy who is the captain is at once both very Southern and kind of Scottish. And they've got the ship filled with LARPers, with Civil War reenactors.
Yeah, we get to meet a few of them in the upcoming chapters. Like someone's like, I'm a travel agent during the week. And now I'm like firing a cannon at Asians in New Orleans for some reason. And we get a brief recap of how Dirk crashed the helicopter right next to it, ran on board, explained the situation, showed off the bullet holes, and everybody on the Stonewall Jackson is like, yeah, this sounds fun.
Yeah, no questions. There were
no questions.
They were just all on board. I don't know if there were stray tourists or like gamblers caught.
Oh God, I hope so. I hope everyone is still downstairs gambling.
The catering crew, the music staff. I hope they were all on board too, along with all of these Civil War reenactors who are. This is what suburban life does to you. You are in it for so long, you get so bored. Somebody comes up to you and says, do you want to rob a bank with me right now? You will go, yeah, no questions. And that's what happened to these men. I completely understand.
Chapter 73 starts off with somebody telling Lee Tong, sir, we're being attacked by a paddle boat. And Lee Tong has to specifically point out he can't imagine who could possibly be piloting it. Because as far as he knows, he beat Dirk Pitt to death with a paddle.
Yes, a more analog paddle.
The cat is back. Leaves all over you. What did you do?
The barge is gaining speed, and all of the Civil War reenactors are just ready. These dentists and realtors and plumbers are ready for action. They had live fire bullets. They weren't even planning for this coup to happen on a Sunday. These guys just showed up with live rounds.
Oh, it's muskets. Live rounds is just black powder and lead balls.
And I understand that could kill a man or get caught in a hat and nothing could happen.
Yep. The decoy ship, the Royal Navy decoy ship, is about to ram the paddle wheeler, but then the decoy ship is taken out by a laser-guided air-to-surface missile from a Coast Guard strike aircraft.
I think that's like a machina?
A little bit. That comes out of nowhere. So obviously the chain of command is still working. Somebody has to have been tipped off that the Royal Navy boat was not a Royal Navy boat, but that's a gamble either way.
That's a risk. But we do find out later that somebody called up Jaeger to find out the name of that boat and where it is. And so they do provide cover later on, like, oh, we knew at the time that the only British vessel with that name was right in the middle of Yorkshire pudding. I don't know, somewhere in England.
Yep. It's a fake.
It's in Buckingham Palace at the moment, as we speak. That whole ship in the palace. We know exactly where it is.
Oh yeah, and now is when we meet and get to spend some time with the captain of the paddle wheeler, who is a Confederate general, but who is also a travel agent who is freaking out.
No, he's holding it together.
No, he is, but he's freaking out, but in like an excited, fun way.
Oh, he's like, I was born for this day. Yes,
Yep.
I am a travel agent. I am General Lee. We just didn't know it. And he is pushing every implement on this museum to the max. There are engines he's never used before because it's not supposed to move. This is
It's meant to be docked permanently.
He's a ceremonial captain. This is like the love boat you go on. You get a picture with this guy. He's not a captain.
But everybody loads up their large caliber muskets, draw their sabers, hide behind cotton bales, which I guess they had laying around, and prepare to, and then I editorialize here, prepare to probably die in the next chapter.
Yes.
And it just keeps intercutting with Sandecker, Emmett Brogan, and Fawcett, who are watching this on TV, or just like, what the fuck?
I've been to Memphis. There's cotton everywhere. There's cotton museums. There's
I'm sure
cotton parades.
I just wasn't sure how many bales they had on board when this started.
I don't know why it is flammable. So for safety reasons, you would need as many as possible in the 80s.
I suppose. Now we get into chapter 74, which is a gigantic chapter. This is where everything happens. I have an entire one whole page of notes just for this chapter, but everybody listening can probably tell what's about to happen.
We finally get the soundtrack. The Yellow Rose of Texas starts playing.
Yep.
They brought the band guys. I was joking, but the band guys do come through.
The paddle wheeler does have a steam-powered calliope, and someone's just blasting away on this the whole time.
Calliope, for listeners who don't know, it's carnival music.
Yeah.
It's that's it, precisely.
And they're firing grape shot, they're firing their muskets. One shot from the cannon takes off the captain of the towboat's head in front of Lee Tong.
And Lee Tong is fine with this. He's just like, well, plans change.
Whoa, that was
have
close.
to pivot now. And they're not cannonballs. They're paint cans because they
Oh, are they? Awesome.
Yeah, they're cheaper. As the captain says, the captain of the Stonewall Jackson explains to Dirk, they didn't have enough in their budget to recreate actual cannonballs.
Yeah, I'm sure firing paint cans is completely safe.
Paint cans filled with cement. So yes, it's incredibly safe. Luckily, all of these guys have used black powder and hardened cement at high speeds regularly, so everything is going smoothly, and the Confederates, for once, come out on top.
There's the line, Bougainville's men were hired thugs, paid killers, incapable of showing mercy, but they were overrun by the Confederates.
And in this case,
I mean, they were overrun by travel agents, heavily armed travel agents.
A bored dentist, a couple of divorced dads.
Yeah, they ram the towboat, they shoot everyone, they all leap on board, and then the tone changes a little bit because it skips to Giordino wandering through the boat, putting a bullet into every Asian face he sees.
Yeah, which is a bit like, calm down.
That's less, adventurous.
That's just murder.
Yeah.
That's just murder. We've wandered into, Al, you're a psychopath now. I know you've been shot in both legs. How is he walking?
Yeah, just like every book, he gets shot in the leg and Dirk has to rescue him.
He's still missing a finger, unless it grew back. I don't know about the nanotechnology in this book. The Captain Belcheron, which is a very mellifluous southern name, yanks the whistle cord and shouts, and the boys celebrate and the rebel yell. They win, and Li Tong is killed by Dirk Pitt.
Dirk gets to the bow of the towboat, but the barge is floating away like they've been separated. And a bullet just misses his head, and he rolls into the sea. And we get a whole scene with Li Tong, who's on the barge now. He has no escape ship. He has no towboat, but he still has to scuttle the boat because that's his mom's commands. So he's about to put a bullet into Loren Smith's brain, and he's thinking like, it'll be such a waste. And then Pitt arrives with a musket.
And Li Tong is like outraged. He's like, I've killed you like 3 times. Why aren't you dead yet?
Yeah, Li Tong goes to shoot Pitt, but he's out of ammo. So Li Tong is like, well, I surrender. You better arrest me. And Pitt's like, no. Yeah,
Pitt's like, you wait. I'm a murderous son of a bitch. This fog of war, this I can play off as, you were killed in battle. Wait till you hear about what I do to your grandma.
He went for a knife. It's not even like an easy, quick kill. He blows his neck out with buckshot and then just leaves him there while he rescues Loren and Margolin. But he's dead on his feet. In quotes here, beyond fear lies desperation, and beyond that, a raging drive to survive. Pitt was a rare man, unstoppable in the face of certain doom. Grinding agony and broken ribs. This goes on and on and on and on. That he should have died 10 times now. He's carrying Loren and Margolin by himself up a ladder on a sinking boat.
It's very much like Mission Impossible, having a fight through a helicopter that's crashing down a mountain while also getting ready to scuba dive and fight somebody underwater vibes. It's
while a nuke is going off, yes.
Yes.
And looking hot doing it.
And you have food poisoning.
And right at the very end...
We couldn't make it any harder.
Right at the very end, he's just about to pass out, and then an arm grabs him, and then we skip ahead to chapter 75. Hard cut.
Real hard cut. Speaker Moran is feeling real smug.
Cat.
He's got a Supreme Court justice there, and he's really ready to get sworn in. The vote has passed. The previous tragic president has been defrocked. He's no longer president. He's been impeached and removed from office.
He steps up to the podium. Emmett and Brogan are like, there's no word. It's all over. And then he puts his hands on the Bible. He prepares to take oath.
Oh, just like this is the Little Caesar.
Oh, yeah. And they talk about Little Caesar, which I always bring up as the movie that gave us the "yeah, see" accent.
They all think they're fucked. Like, this is... Yeah. Moran knows that they've been up to something. They all think that they're just dead in the morning.
Yeah, he gets one word into the oath, and Margolin walks in.
And he's like, very James Bond, like, I'll take it from here.
I'll take it from here. Thanks for the rehearsal. I'll take it from here.
The dude has been in an IV coma for 20 days now?
Yeah. He's been missing this entire book.
He's probably lost gobs of weight. He's had no muscle conditioning. He'd be wielding.
We also, they can't know how much he's been brainwashed.
Fair point. He's also brainwashed. This doesn't help.
The thing is, he hasn't been brainwashed, but they can't know that because he was in the brainwashing tube when they rescued him. They have no idea, how far the process went, if at all.
You're absolutely right. Oh my God, that's horrific. And he just sails in there, Rico Suave, I'm taking over. And that would kill. The press would love it.
I'm the president now. I can't believe in this airtight book I found a plot hole. And now, finally, at long last, chapter 76, the last chapter.
Yes. Sal Cashio meets Dirk Pitt at the World Trade Center. He's taken out a bunch of bad guys, and he's taking care of security.
Yeah, just off camera. Had to get all that prepped. Dirk is still almost dead, but his eyes are glowing with the sinister glow of revenge.
Yes, it's like two different ways of cooking. You can cook and get the ingredients as you go, or you can cook and have everything in little cups prepped.
Oh yeah, sous chef.
Yes, like a sous chef. Al is the sous chef to Dirk Pitt's killing.
Mise en place.
He has everything. He's at mise en place. Everything is set in place in white little cruzettes. The bullets over here, the maiming's over there. Little bit of gore.
They walk up to the secretary for Miss Bougainville, and she's like, "Are you sure you have an appointment? There's nothing in the appointment book." So Sal karate chops her neck.
Yes, but she had a pistol in her blouse.
Yes, so it's okay.
Which he didn't know until after the fact, but he knew that ahead of time. But he had a premonition about 25 caliber bullets.
Yeah.
And boobs. And then a lot of stereotypes come running down the pike here. We get a lot of babes who are karate chopping everything.
Yeah.
So everybody who looks like a meek, as described, these are not my words, everyone who is described as a meek, obsequious servant of Min Koryo, who's just passing by, maybe a secretary or a flower arranger, the girl who serves tea, they all come at Dirk with deadly accuracy. They're spinning, freewheeling, there's hopping, there's jumping.
They're all sexy ninjas. There's an excellent moment where one of them karate chops Sal on the neck, but he's just too tough and it has no effect. So he just punches her and knocks her out.
Well, so Sal Cashio is supposed to be huge, right? And these girls are all depicted as being 90-pound little flowers. So there is physics. And you can be a really great fighter. There's still physics.
Mass is still involved, but you don't go for the muscly part of the neck. You go for behind the jaw, behind the ear. It's very sensitive. My martial arts teacher is a tiny 90-pound woman who can kick my ass.
Oh, I was always taught to go for the ears because they won't kill a person when you remove an ear, but it will surprise them, and you could take an ear off with only 3 pounds of pressure.
Oh boy, yeah. Those nerves are sensitive. But no, they attack Sal at his strongest point, his thick American neck, and has no effect. So they beat their way through the sexy Asian ninjas.
There's like an army of them. There's
what a
baker's dozen easily. But then when he gets through, like a video game, he gets through that level of all the pretty broads being thrown at him one by one, because it's like a kung fu movie. Nobody fights in tandem, because that way you could possibly win. Teamwork makes the dream work.
Just like that sketch from In Living Color. It's like, what did you do? Attacked them one at a time.
And he gets to Min Koryo, and she is a disappointing figure. She's just a tiny, old, withered old woman.
Yeah.
And he has no time for her. He tells her, your grandson is dead, just to make sure it hurts.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt that much, because he's like, she's still a psychopath. This bitch doesn't even feel sadness that her last surviving relative is dead. So he just picks her up, plucks her into her little wheelchair.
Well, not yet.
Oh no, it's my favorite part? Okay.
I was going to say, one very stupid thing happens first. They're amazed that she's not showing any fear, even though they have these 2 large armed men standing over her. But underneath her blankets, she touches a remote control, and it turns out that the security camera in this room is actually a laser cannon.
Oh, yes, and it kills Sal.
Yeah, it gets Sal right across the middle. It cuts all the furniture in half. Sal is eviscerated, I guess. And his last act before he dies is to give Pitt the elevator code.
Which is really cool, because if I'm under stress, I can't give you any code.
I wouldn't know my PIN number if I was dying.
I wouldn't know my name. If you held a gun to my head, or if you held a gun to my best friend's head and said, tell me your name, I'd be like,
Steve.
I know this because I've had the low stakes scenario. Exact same scenario. I've gone to the podiatrist, taken off my shoes. He's told me, walk normally. Could not do it.
Well, not if you say it like that. How does walking work? Now I'm thinking about it.
But he has the presence of mind. He's got it together, not like the nerds we are. He's got the intellectual, physical, and muscle presence to give him the elevator code. I am deeply impressed with Sal Cashio.
Yeah, he was great. So that's when Pitt picks her up, puts her in the wheelchair, brings her out to the lobby. tells her that her company is destroyed, all of her relatives are dead, all of her possessions will be sold off, and he'll make sure she's buried in a potter's field.
And then he throws her down an elevator shaft like a kid tosses a penny into a fountain. And it is great. She clinks all the way down.
From the top of the World Trade Center. Actually kind of laughed at that part.
I love that.
Although the very next part is he's back down in the lobby, meets up with Loren, she hugs him, and she senses a new inner peace in Pitt.
Oh, which is not settling. This is not settling.
There's no one left to kill.
You know, listeners, how, like, you or I will have a to-do list, like do the laundry, take the pet to the vet, finish writing your grocery list. When you cross off everything on the list, you feel like, oh, I did it. I'm at peace. I even did the dishes. That's what he feels like right now. That's giving him a sense of accomplishment.
Yep. So he and Loren embrace, and he says, let's go to a hotel room for a week. And Lauren's like, well, I guess I have to. You saved my life.
Pitt's not PTSD'd about this at all. Like, he just did something wildly sinister. I mean, even if she was the worst human who ever lived, he did just take a grandma and plunk her down.
Yeah, but that was his therapy. He had PTSD from everything else. Only by pushing an old woman down an elevator shaft can he have closure.
Like Pachinko?
Yes, like Pachinko. Madame Bougainville gets Pachinko to the end.
Feels deeply wrong, and I'm sorry.
And my one note for the end of this was the Russians escape all consequences, and the president lives out the rest of his life as an organic zombie computer.
We never get resolution about this former president.
Doesn't he have a wife?
Oh my god, do they even tell her?
We don't see her from, like, after chapter 14 where the wives are just, like, ordered to stay home and stay out of the news for a few days. And that's the last time, like, anyone's families are brought into this.
That was 10 years ago.
It really was. And that's the conclusion.
This was a great book, actually. It was incredibly entertaining to the end. I loved
It was.
taking the whole presidential yacht, because what chaos that would cause. Oh my god.
Yeah, for the last ones involving a lot of airplanes, there was a lot of boat nonsense in this one. And basically all the boats got blown up. Because there's the president's yacht that got sank. There was the Russian cruise ship that blew up and then sank. There's a paddle wheeler that got shot all to hell, and I think it was sinking. There's
that sank.
The mind control facility, which was sinking when Dirk finally got rescued. There's and at the beginning, the San Marino loaded with nerve toxin.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that. That was all the way at the beginning. So this has been a real bloodthirsty tour de force.
Yeah, he really upped the stakes and, like, the body count in this one. The body count's through the roof.
Now, in terms of engineering and structure, if you have a tourist trap boat like the Stonewall Jackson, and it has been moored for 75 years in one spot, what would it take?
There was no way the boiler did that without exploding.
The boiler wasn't even hooked up.
Did it just have, like, a Honda diesel on it?
They would have had to get every car battery in the parking lot. Daisy trained it.
I'm sure Dirk thought of something.
Oh, he got it working. He got those steam engine.
Knowing him, he very carefully wired the helicopter engine into it, while Slats is just like, could you call me an ambulance?
He necromancy a smithy to get the boiler back and running. You built this. Finish it.
And so here, at the very end of this book, I would like to give it a rating.
Really?
For each of us to give it a rating. Yeah.
Okay.
I talked about that, how we should probably start trying to have scores for these, because every other podcast does that for every other book, and I'd be interested to see how the scores we give these books change over time.
What metric shall we use? How many sexy secretaries? How many? How many ricochets?
Normally, I would say sexy secretaries, but that was definitely the last couple of books. We didn't really have one in this except for Antonov's, and we kind of skipped over her.
No, but instead of having 5 stars.
Oh, I know. I just meant, like, it can be different every time.
Oh, yes.
So what do you think would be the best ranking metric for this particular book? Paddle wheelers?
Overachieving henchmen? No, not too many of those. Racist tropes? 10 out of 10 racist tropes.
So you're giving this book a 10 out of 10? I'm like, I'm not sure if I want to give it 10 or 0 for racist tropes, if that's what we're using.
Oh, okay. That's
I'm not-
yeah. Well, it's filled with. It's an entertaining book.
It is. It was entertaining. It was complicated, except for the occasional time where he just had to, like, dip into history and show you how much research he did. It moved along quickly. It was breezy.
Oh, and the last thing he says to Min Koryo is, she offers him, like every villain does, you know, I'll give you fame, I'll give you fortune. And he goes, I want my car back, you son of a bitch.
Oh my God, you're right. I can't believe I missed
Oh, this, he's angriest about the car.
You blew up my car. You blew up my Talbot logo.
Not the girl that got blown up, nerve gassed in the beginning.
Yeah.
We forgot her name because she was 40-something.
Wait a minute. Chapter 2, Chapter 3, who was that? All right, Julie Mendoza of the EPA.
Mendoza!
Oh, the EPA gets taken. The EPA had a hard time in the 80s. Remember Ghostbusters?
Oh my God, you're right. The EPA were the villains there. So what do you think? Out of 10 paddle wheelers?
8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 on paddle wheelers.
Out of 10 Stonewall Jacksons? You're giving this one 8 out of 10?
8 out of 10 paddle wheelers. It was very entertaining. And the nerdy parts about the car parts and the other car parts were easy to gloss over. Whenever he gets deep into car talk, I'm out.
Your eyes just unfocus and you skip to the next page.
Oh my God, yes. That and hydrofoils. Mercifully, no hydrofoils in this book. Gosh, does he love to describe metallic objects.
He really does.
But it doesn't go too far in this book with the inanimate object description, and we get a lot of movement. Loren's in trouble again. I think I like that. Maybe that's a kink now.
I wonder how many more times she gets kidnapped.
At some point,
and how long she puts up with it.
It's going to be her fault. She's got to have access to a security team. The Secret Service is at some point. Well, you know, the government is kind of crumbling in this scenario. I blame Canada. Ever since we got together with you guys, everything has been unstable.
I'm sure at some point they'll pass a law where anybody going out with Dirk Pitt gets a Secret Service detail.
Fair.
I was going to give it a 7.5 out of 10 because I feel, you know, some things held it back, possibly the overt racism, but still very enjoyable.
Ah, you just took me and threw me under the bus. I am 0.5 more racist than you. Oh.
There's a multitude of factors that have to be considered. I'm not trying to throw you under the bus. God damn it, I can't win.
You can't win. Can't win. All right. I gotta go find my child. He's not home from school yet. He's probably standing naked in the brook.
As kids are wont to do.
He is. He is chaos.
Thank you all for joining us on this insane book.
Yes, thank you, listeners. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Eat six. A Confederacy saves the day. Eat six. There's no one left for Dirk to slay. We meet Griffin and Slash Hogan, and they die in the very next scene. Dirk Pitt hides at Stonewall Jackson, get the loppers free. Hal gets shot in another leg, Loren's in a two. Bookerville is going down, poor Sal Cashio is screwed. Eat six. This book is forever. Eat six. But so much dust was pretty dark clever. This has been Cussler, Hustler, Joe, Clifton, Topper, and Nancy. Find us on Twitter and Instagram at Cussler. Hustlers.